Hi everybody, my name is Jen Rowley and I am here at the Baldwin Wallace Conservatory of Music in Berea, Ohio. This is my alma mater. And this week and also in the spring, I am doing an artist residency with the students here. We are working on so many things this week. Yesterday we had a master class where we talked about vocal technique and the importance of vocal health and different exercises for singing, and we worked on arias and songs, and we had a great time. And then this morning I've already met with the freshmen and we were working on English and American song and interpretation, and I'm just so proud to be here at my school. Thank you 360 of Opera, and hello to everyone at 360 of Opera for having me today. This is a part of my social media video series called #AskTheDiva. You can find other #AskTheDiva videos on my page at LaRowley1 on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But what we basically do in Ask the Diva is we take questions from you about various subjects, what you want to know about, what you're dying to know, and this Ask the Diva edition is the Auditions edition. So all of the questions today can be about auditioning. Anything you want to know about auditioning, any sort of strategy type things, anything like that, please feel free to ask, and for the next 30 minutes, I am yours. So we're going to start, I'm going to just basically start talking about auditioning, and then as we get some different questions coming into the feed, you guys keep them coming, and my friend Mitchell, hi Mitchell, everybody say hi Mitchell,
Hi.
Behind the scenes, is going to read your questions to me. So please keep them coming, and we will get to as many as we can. So basically in our business, we have 4 main types of auditions. We have the Young Artist Program audition, we have the school audition or the graduate program audition, we have the main stage audition, and we have the competition. The repertoire for each 4 of these different types of auditions is often very different. So the amount of repertoire that you kind of need to have, it varies at age group, but if you are at the age of a YAP, so if you are post-undergraduate, in graduate school, postgraduate, you need to make sure that you really have 5 arias always at the ready. That means that they're up, they're ready to go, they're in your throat, they're in your voice, you've studied them, you've coached them, you know what they mean dramatically, you know what the character wants, who the character is, what's happening in the scene, things like that. So 5 really great arias. Those 5 arias are going to serve you really well in any YAP, Young Artist Program audition, and those 5 arias can be the same for competition, or in competition I always say that you should have a reacher aria. I call it the reacher aria. It's one aria that will show the panel where you're going. So in 5 years, this is where I'm going to be. So it can be a little bit bigger than the rest of the repertoire, but it really is going to show the judges, if you give me this award, your money is going to help me get to here, basically. So that's the reacher aria. For your graduate school auditions, you're going to want to have 2 arias almost always, and then you're going to have a mix of song repertoire, so art song repertoire. And you want to make sure when you're choosing your art song repertoire that you really think about voice type and fach and character. Because if you are a soubrette, coloratura, or soprano, there are plenty of art songs that suit you really, really well. And you don't want to go in with something like Erlkönig, which is super dramatic, and it's big singing. So you really want to watch with fach and voice type. You want to see what kind of art songs fit with the arias that you actually have already. So you're kind of giving the graduate school an idea of, this is where I think I'm going in the next 3 years while I'm at your school. And then the main stage audition, dependent on if it's general or if it's specific, quite often it's that same list of 5 arias, but sometimes there'll be other requirements. So if you get a main stage listing from your agent and it has 5 different operas listed for the next season where they need to cast, you sort of want to tailor your list around what you could actually sing in those seasons. So if you are a musetta and they're doing Bohème, you want to sing musetta. Even if musetta is not in your normal 5 aria list, if they're doing Bohème, there's a possibility for them to cast you as that. You want to add that aria into your list. And you can eliminate something else that maybe doesn't fit. Almost all opera companies are doing American and English opera at this point, and so you really want to make sure that you've got a good English piece in your audition package. Something that you could do right then at that point in time in your career. All of the summer programs, all of the young artist programs are doing American and English opera, so you really want to make sure that you have some of those in your list. Do we have a live question we want to answer?
The first question would be, how does one stand out in a crowd of so many singers?
Okay, so in a crowd of so many singers, how does one stand out? That's our first question. And this is really great because it goes in with auditioning. At any audition, I mean, the adjudicators, the panel, they're going to hear hundreds of singers. I think I remember seeing on Facebook one young artist program that said that it had 300 soprano applicants. So if you're a soprano and there are 300 other applicants, how do you stand out? There are many ways to stand out. Personality really is one of them. And you can show your personality from the minute you walk in the room. The way you say hello to the panel, thank them for having you today, the way you introduce your piece, the way you speak to the pianist, being genuine, being kind, being happy, being positive, that can help you stand out. What you wear can help you stand out. You don't want to stand out in a bad way, but you want to stand out in a good way. So looking put together, looking very classy, looking very, you want to be diva, but not like so over the top diva that it's too much. But you want to be glamorous. You want to look beautiful. Do your hair, do your makeup, and really go in and present yourself with a lot of confidence. The other way that you can stand out is in your repertoire. You really want to pick pieces for your 5 aria list that you love to sing. Because when you really love your repertoire, it shows. It shows to the whole room. It shows to everyone who's watching you. And if you really understand that character, you can emote with that character, you can feel that character, that's gonna make you stand out as well. I mean, the panel's just gonna feel this confidence about you, and they're gonna wanna work with you. Also, the other thing that I say about auditioning in order to stand out, you want to make sure whatever you do best, you do in your audition. So if you have the best B flat of everybody that you know, then you better have a big, beautiful B flat in your audition package that you can show them. Because it's really important to sort of put out what you do extremely well. If you're a coloratura and you can sing a high Q, then you sing a high Q in an audition because it's gonna make them understand who you are and it's gonna make you stand out. Hope that helps. Next question.
Do you have any advice for the beginning opera student?
So beginning opera singers, my advice always is to learn your technique. Go to school, go to your lessons, go to your coachings, really learn your vocal technique. When you learn your vocal technique in your early 20s, and really learn the anatomy, learn how your instrument works, feel how the instrument works, feel how your breath moves, feel how your diaphragm moves, feel how the breath activates, feel how the larynx lowers, all of the looseness in here, and understand how to do diction without clamping down in the mouth and in the jaw. When you understand those things, you can carry that technique into graduate school, and then you're ready to go when they tell you, okay, we want you to sing Queen of the Night this season. If you are ready and prepared technically to sing Queen of the Night, then you're gonna have a great graduate school experience, if that's your fach anyways. If you're not ready technically, then you're gonna spend the first couple of years of graduate school relearning technique. So really start early learning technique. The other thing that I would say for beginning opera singers is don't jump into repertoire that's too big too early. I know it's exciting, I know opera is amazing, and every soprano wants to sing Violetta, I know. But believe me, and take it from me, Violetta is hard. She's really, really difficult. So if you learn her too early, you're gonna learn in habits that are bad, which will form into the muscle memory that you're not gonna be able to get rid of later when Violetta is actually appropriate for you to sing. There are plenty of art songs to sing. There's plenty of legit musical theater to sing that will help you learn. There's plenty of light opera. There's plenty of Mozart. There's plenty of things like that to keep you busy and keep you learning at a young age. Just be careful not to jump into anything that's too big too soon. Learn that technique first. Next one.
So how does auditioning work for someone who's singing on big stages like yourself?
Okay, so auditioning for big stages, that's fun. So main stage auditions, either they're going to be general auditions or they're going to be for specific roles. So what I'll do is I'll tell you about my audition experience for Musetta, which was my debut at the Metropolitan Opera. So for Musetta, I had been heard in the role in another opera house by someone on the casting committee at the Metropolitan Opera. He heard me in another house, he really liked the way I did it, so they invited me to come in and do an audition. So the first audition that I did was for the panel, which basically does the covers and small roles at the Metropolitan Opera. I went in, I sang, they really loved Musetta, and they invited me back to sing on the main stage. And basically what they said was, we need to hear Quando Men Vo on the stage, and Mr. Gelb needs to come down and hear you. So I said, great. So they scheduled another audition for the following week. I went onto the stage, which was crazy. When you get on that stage for the first time and you look out and you see how immense it is, I mean, it's like completely mind-blowing. And I think, if I'm remembering, I do remember this correctly, I walked out into the stage and I stood center stage and I started laughing because I couldn't believe, first of all, that I was standing there, but second of all, it's so big. And I remember Lenore Rosenberg laughing back at me, and I said to her, I was like, people must do that all the time when they get up here, because it was so crazy. I mean, you study so long for that moment when you walk onto the stage for the first time, and it was just absolutely incredible. So anyway, back to the audition. I sang Quando Men Vo on the stage, and Mr. Gelb had come in and he watched, and then he went to his office, and then there was a meeting, and the next day I received a call that said Jen's gonna make her Met debut as Musetta in 2014. So that was amazing. So that kind of an audition experience, that's a very specific audition experience, and that happens a lot. But there's other auditions, for example, at the Metropolitan Opera that can be for cover roles. So what you will do is you'll take your 5 aria list, and your manager will set up an audition for you with the casting director for the covers and the small roles, and you'll go into List Hall, which is, down on the side of the lobby. If you go down the stairs on the left side of the lobby, near the bathrooms, if you walk past, there's a small hall there called List Hall. And they show the quiz, they do the quiz there, and they show like the HD broadcasts. If you're late, they're in that room. So you'll go into that room and you'll sing your 5 aria list, or you'll sing one, you'll start with one, you'll start with your starter aria, and then they'll ask for another one or sometimes 2. And you'll sing your audition there for that person. For other opera companies, main stage opera companies, quite often they come to New York and they do auditions for 2 or 3 days during the months of November and December. So we call this audition season. So for example, if, let's say New Orleans Opera, who I love, hi everybody at New Orleans Opera, let's say they're coming to New York. Basically what they're gonna do is they're gonna rent a space, they're gonna rent a studio space, and they're gonna write agents and they're gonna say, we are going to be in town these days and we would like to hear singers for these specific productions. And then you will get an email from your manager saying, I've submitted you for an audition for New Orleans Opera for these specific productions. And then you'll hear a couple of weeks later, you have an audition time at this time. You'll go to the studio, there won't be a warm-up space, just so you know, so you need to warm up at home or rent a space that you can warm up in. And you'll go and you'll wait for your time and you'll go in the room. Again, the same thing will be your 5 aria list. If they've put you for specific roles, you obviously want to have a specific aria for that role in your 5 aria list. And again, you'll sing your starter aria, and then they'll ask for a second piece or a third, just depends on what they're looking for. So I hope that helps. Next one.
So a lot of New York City auditions are in smaller rooms, which are not representative of performance spaces for bigger voices. So how would you suggest to get around that situation?
So yes, a lot of auditions in New York City are in smaller rooms, unfortunately. There are some very famous and favorite spaces in New York where houses will rent space. There are some spaces that are quite large and you'll be fine in those spaces. Of course, like I think people are renting Merkin Hall now, which is great. So you have a whole hall to sing in. But if you're, at 244 Rehearsal Studios, where the room is very small, there isn't a ton you can do about it. You don't want to change your vocal production to kind of help out the size of the room. You just do your thing. You go in, you sing the way that you do. Don't try to alter what you do based upon the space that you're in, because the only thing you're going to do if you try to alter the sound is hold. And if you hold, you're going to make yourself tired in the throat and in the larynx, and your cords are going to get swollen, and the next day you're not going to be able to sing. It's going to make you very unhappy to do that. So don't do that. Go in with confidence, doesn't matter the size of the room, and sing your pieces the way that you sing your pieces. It's up to the panel if they need earplugs. They can put earplugs in if they need earplugs. I've definitely auditioned in many, many small rooms and saw the panel going like this. It happens, but it's the nature of the business. So don't change anything, just go in and do your thing and be yourself. Next one.
How do you know if an audition went well and you always get feedback right away?
Okay, so auditions, pretty normally, you don't get any feedback. It's terrible, I know, but pretty normally, there is no feedback. You never know if it went well unless they call and give you a job. The one thing I can say though is when you have a manager and you're in the place where you're doing main stage auditions or YAP auditions with a manager, the manager will quite often write and ask for feedback. And anytime the manager writes and asks for feedback, normally the house will respond with whatever they wrote in their computer file or on their paper, and they will give you that feedback. Sometimes it takes a few weeks to get, but they will actually send it to you. So if you're a managed singer and you feel like you want feedback from an audition, great. Your manager can write and get you feedback. My advice though, and I say this only from my own perspective, too many cooks in the kitchen is a bad thing, because you bump into each other and somebody's gonna get hurt. So my advice often is go in, do your best performance that you can give on that day, and when you leave the room, your job is done. Leave, go home, go to work, go to the gym, go wherever, but your audition is over. Don't worry about it after you walk out the door, because when you walk out the door, there's no more control. You have no more control over the situation. When you are in control is when you walk in the room and you present yourself. The way you present yourself, the way you sing, the way you treat the pianist, the way you treat the monitor in the hallway, those are all things that are in your control. Once you leave the room, it's not yours to worry about anymore. If they want to give you a job, trust me, they'll call and they'll give you a job. Or they'll call your managers and they'll give you a job. But too much advice and feedback from too many different sources can be really confusing, and honestly, it can be really hurtful. And it can make you feel less than you actually are. And I would never want that for any of you. So if you really feel like you could do this and not accept feedback or not even ask for it, you don't need it. You have your team, you have your voice teacher, your coaches, your diction coaches, your favorite people that you trust, your ears that you trust. Trust those people. Everything else is just noise, and you just go in and do your thing. If you feel like you need feedback, then ask your manager and your manager will get it for you. Okay? Next one.
So do auditions happen year-round, and how far in advance do, say, B, C level companies audition?
It just depends. So sometimes auditions do happen year-round. I've actually been seeing a lot of auditions in the spring that are happening. In the spring, almost always there's competitions to do, so you can be doing those types of auditions as well. Graduate program auditions usually happen January, February, March, with application deadlines in November and December usually. So those things happen after the new year. Main stage auditions tend to happen in that November, December little block, but I do know that the major houses will hear people all year long. So for example, if you're going over to Europe and you're going to sing at, say, Munich and Dresden and oh, I don't know, Karlsruhe and Leipzig or something like that, all of them could feasibly be hearing singers in January. And if you can't make it in January, usually they'll give you another option. Oh, we're hearing singers again in March, so then you could go in March. Or, oh, we're hearing singers again in June. I've definitely done auditions in July, overseas. So it happens. And quite often in the spring, European houses will come to New York and do auditions in New York as well in the spring. I don't see them very often in the fall, but in the spring, a lot of them do come. So you can get heard year round. You just usually have to have your management set those kinds of things up for you. YAP auditions, that's audition season. And that's usually for the coming summer. So you really, if you're at the YAP stage of things, you really want to make sure that August, September, you're preparing really well your audition repertoire so that November, December, you're doing all of the auditions, and then the next summer, that summer, you're doing the programs. So that's kind of the timeline of things. As far as main stage auditions and how far in advance they audition people, I have contracts for houses 3 years away from now. So the longest that I've been contracted in advance is 4 years, and that's at a regional, it's a A-level regional American house, and that was 4 years away when I got the contract. But some houses are auditioning for next year. So it just depends on what the budget is. It depends on if they've decided on their repertoire. It depends on, sometimes they'll decide on repertoire based on budget. So they'll wait till the new year, find out what the budget is, and then decide their repertoire for the following year, and then do auditions for that. So it just, honestly, it depends on the company. It depends on their donors. It depends on their repertoire. It depends on all those kinds of things. So you could get contracts 4 years in advance. Normally, Europe and the bigger houses in the US is 2 years in advance, or you could get something I just got contracted for something in the summer. So, it just it happens like that. You just never know. There's no this is the answer to that question. It's a broad answer. So, okay, next one.
So, do you think you should act when you sing an aria in an audition?
You absolutely should act when you sing an aria at an audition. You're showing yourself as a performer. You're not just showing the voice. Opera is a visual medium as well. And we all know that opera is being put into movie theaters on HD cameras, live streams on Facebook, live streams on Instagram. There have been some really big live streams that have happened this season, and people loved it. So they're watching. They're watching you. They're watching if you are connecting with that character on a really deep basis, because on an HD camera, it picks up the smallest things. So they want to see those details. So yes, 100% you should act in your audition. Now, there's a fine line. In my opinion, you're not acting out a scene in your audition. So no pantomiming. If you're reading a letter, don't read a letter. You don't need to do those kinds of things. You also don't need to wander back and forth and make big crosses or anything like that. Very simply standing at the crook of the piano and doing an intimate performance for the audition panel is perfect. If you can connect with your piece and act in that kind of on that kind of platform, it's much better, especially if you're in a small room. If you're in a larger space and you want to make a cross here and there, that's fine. But definitely don't pantomime anything. Don't usually going down on your knees or anything like that in audition is a no-no. You really just kind of want to compose yourself, stand at the crook of the piano, and really feel your piece. Get connected dramatically and act in a very organic way, because they're not sitting that far away and they can see you. So you really want to be connected the whole time. So next question.
When do you think it's time for young singers to consider management?
When is it time for young singers to consider management? This is a really good question. There's not really an age per se when young singers should consider management. There is a vocal development period when young singers should consider management. So if you are at a place where you feel like you are really ready to sing a full role on a stage at any level of house in the country, then that's when you're ready to audition for management. Because once you have management, they're not putting you out for scenes programs. They're putting you out for huge roles. They're putting you out for year-long young artist programs. They're putting you out for covers of big roles, which you may have to go on for. You know, that just happened at the Met a couple of nights ago. Somebody went on in the middle of Pearl Fishers and made his Met debut. You know, he was ready to do that. So there's not really an age per se when you're ready, but there's a stage in your vocal development, there's a stage in your growth as an actress or an actor when you're actually ready to take on the demands of the business and to take on the demands that a full role in production would put on you. So I would say, if you want like a timeline, when you've finished your major YAP programs, so you finished graduate school, you've done maybe a year in a YAP program, maybe you've done a second year, that's really when you're ready to start looking at management, because those YAP programs are going to prepare you for singing full roles. You're going to be covering full roles in those programs. If you don't do a year-long YAP program, maybe after your second summer YAP program, you could start looking at management. But really, you want to wait until after you've had experience being in production, being in rehearsal, and knowing what it's like to sing for 6 hours a day in rehearsal. You know, you really want to make sure you're ready for that before you do it. Next.
So this is a question about you.
Okay.
Do you mentor YAP age singers?
Do I mentor YAP age singers? I mean, I'm happy to mentor any age of singer. But I, right now, in my artist residency here at Baldwin Wallace, I am mentoring basically all of the kids going into graduate school. And in my opinion, probably some YAPs where they're in the like pay to sing area, and some of the YAPs where they're using the young artists as chorus and they're doing small roles and covering things like that. But as far as like outside of the school mentoring, I don't do a ton of private teaching or anything like that. But if you have a question about something, you can always reach me. I respond to all of my questions. You can send me a direct message on Instagram. You can send me a private message to my Facebook page, Jennifer Rowley Soprano. I always answer all of my questions that I receive. So if you have a question about something that you want to ask me privately, please feel free. Next.
So how do you go about finding and auditioning for management?
Okay, finding and auditioning for management. This is tough, right? Because you don't want, first of all, you want to find somebody that you're really going to connect with, and someone who believes in you. That's a really big thing. If you go to an audition for a manager and the manager's just kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess we could work together, that's not a manager who believes in you. If you go to an audition for a manager and the manager's like, oh, this is a great voice, I am so excited about you, I'm gonna put you out for this, and this, that's a manager who believes in you. So you really have to have someone like that, but that person you also have to be able to connect with, because you have a lot of interaction. There's a lot of stressful times too, I mean, because the manager's not just setting up audition for you, the manager's executing contracts for you, the manager's staff at their office is setting up your travel. If there's an emergency and like you're stuck at a train station in the middle of nowhere and you have no train ticket and you need someone to get you to your house and in wherever in Germany, you have to be able to call that manager. So you really have to have a good rapport with that person. So what my suggestion always is to young singers, look at who in the business inspires you. Who is out there who you really think, I mean, this girl is where I would like to be in 5 years. Look and see who their management is. If that management is a little bit beyond where you think you might be, I mean, for example, if it's Asconis Holt or something like that and you're just a young artist, you have to weigh and see, am I ready for a manager that big, or do I want more of a boutique agency? So if you feel like I'm ready for a manager that big, you write them an email, you send them your materials, you send them a cover letter, you send them a really nice biography, lots of sound video clips, and you see what they say. And then they'll invite you for an audition or not. If that manager is a bit beyond what you think you're at this point and you want to go to a boutique agency, check out some more of the regional singers. So go look at management agencies' rosters and see who's working. Go down the list and see, oh, these people are working, these people are working, these people are great, this manager must be great, all of his people are working. You want to audition for that person, you do exactly the same thing. You send an email with a bio and a cover letter and your video clips on YouTube and things like that, and you send your materials. That manager, if they're hearing people for the roster, will invite you for a live audition, and then you'll do an audition for them, and you'll have a little meeting with them, and you'll discuss your career, and then you'll go from there. But it's really important that you look at the roster that you want to be on. You know, look at the people who are out there working. If you're looking at a manager, like let's say you're looking at a German manager, right? And you're looking at their roster list, and a lot of their singers are in fest contracts, and you want a fest contract, this is probably a good agency for you to go to, because they probably have a lot of connections in the fest area. If all of their singers have fests, then they probably know what they're doing. So that's probably someone you want to audition for. If you look at somebody's roster and 3/4 of the people aren't actually working, they don't have upcoming gigs, maybe this isn't the agent for you. So you really have to weigh who's on the roster, who's working, who's in your same voice type that you might be competitive with. Because a lot of managers, if they have someone that sings exactly the same repertoire as you, and they're having a tough time getting them work, or they're focused on them, they won't take another person that sings exactly the same repertoire. So you really want to look and see how you would fit on that roster as well. So I hope that helps.
That takes us to time.
Okay, that takes us to 1 o'clock. So thank you guys all so much for all of your questions. If you have more questions, I'm happy to answer them. Like I said, you can go to my Instagram page at Rowley1. You can go to my Facebook page, Jennifer Rowley Soprano, and you can send me private messages, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I didn't get to. I want to thank everyone at 360 of Opera for having me. We're gonna have some more surprises for you guys later on today. I wanted to also thank my alma mater, Baldwin Wallace, who I'm very proud of, who just yesterday we found out won another National Opera Association award for their opera last season. Woo! They won one last year and they won one again this year, and I'm so proud of them. So I'm so happy to be here, so happy to be in this residency, and thank you guys so much for wanting to chat today. Thank you, have a good day.